segundo. Hello everyone, and welcome to another event of Age in Spain. This time to talk about the residency process and its particularities in the northern regions of Spain. With us, we have today our regional coordinator for the Canaries and for Spain North, Deepika Harjani. She will explain a bit to us what consists the residency process in those comunidades autónomas such as Navarra, Basque Country, Galicia, Asturias, and so on, as well as some of the tricks that you may be able to do there in order to speed up your residency process, some things that might be very useful to know in general particularities. And just before getting into the main event, I will go through the withdrawal agreement, highlighting some of the aspects and characteristics that have changed since past year. As you all know, there is a withdrawal agreement in place that is supposed to secure the residency rights of all UK nationals that were living in Spain before the end of 2020. This mostly makes reference to all those UK nationals, probably you viewers as well, that were lawfully residing in Spain. What this means, lawfully residing in Spain means that you complied with all the requirements to apply for residency by the end of 2020, even though you didn't apply for it. So, for example, if you were empadronado in a Spanish town, had private health insurance, for example, or you were already with your S1, or even you had a working contract and you were paying into the social security, those are some requirements that even in 2021 let you apply for the Spanish residency under the scope of the withdrawal agreement. On the other hand, and this is more recent, in Age in Spain we received several cases of people having some rejections, having their residency applications rejected, mainly due to their health insurances being dated from 2021 onwards. After digging a bit, asking to Extranjería, also communicating this to the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, we reached the conclusion that this is because the authorities checking the documents in those applications consider that if you obtained a health insurance policy in 2021, for example, during all the time that you were living in 2020 and prior, you didn't comply with the residency documents, and therefore some immigration offices tend to reject the applications right away if they see a health insurance dated from 2021 onwards. This shouldn't be the case for people that arrive, let's say, by December 2020 and then applied for residency then or now, because those people were in the first 90 days living in Spain, when it's not mandatory to have a health insurance. So if you arrived back then and you got your application rejected, that shouldn't be happening, and we encourage you to contact us and we'll raise the issue to the appropriate authorities. With this said, I think now we can go to the main dish of the event, which is Spain North. And Deepika, I think that you have several points that you want to go through. The main one is the appointment system. What can you explain us of that?
Thank you, Mark. So today we're going to speak a bit about the appointment system. I have a presentation that I want to share with all of you some of the particularities of what to do about booking an appointment. Um, so, um, yeah. So at the moment, those who were here in 2020, you will have noticed that you could have actually make appointments quite easily in certain offices and to submit your document papers and also to get your fingerprints done. However, probably you have noticed that in some regions, the Brexit option for step one has totally disappeared and it doesn't longer appear on the Dropbox. So, for example, in the province of Cantabria, which are for people that live in Santander, as an example, they belong to this province. If you go to Cantabria province on the website, the Cita Previa website, you will notice that there is no longer the option for Brexit. However, what we recommend is that you could select an appointment under the option solicitud de autorizaciones. Bear in mind that at the moment they don't have much appointments available because, as you all know, during COVID times, lots of the offices were closed. So that means they have a lot of backlog of other expedientes and things to do, and not all the staff can be all there at once. So that means that appointments are not from one day to another. In fact, at this moment in time, there were appointments for the earliest was the 26th of May. So if you are in a hurry, we will later on give you other alternatives to actually present your documents first time if you cannot make this appointment feasible for yourself. Okay. Um, so this will be for option one, which, repeating again, this is for step one, where you submit all your evidence to Extranjería for them to review if you are eligible or not for residency. Once the process goes forward and you receive a favorable resolution, which means you receive a letter which grants you the permission to be a resident, either a temporary one that it will be granted for you for 5 years, or either a permanent one, which is if you have provided enough evidence of being in Spain for more than 5 years, you might get directly a permanent one, bearing in mind that in applications that are coming from 2021, you do have to prove that you were a legal resident by the end of 2020, which means you had to meet the criteria by the end of 2020. So, talking about step two, again, some people are panicking because this option that you see here, Policía Expedición Tarjeta Brexit, it is available in some provinces such as La Coruña. So you could go. What you do is you first select your province, and then you make sure that you select under the trámites Cuerpo Nacional de Policía. Bear in mind, fingerprints is with the police, and the first step is with Extranjería. Okay, so this is only for when you either have a green certificate and you want to change it into the TIE, Certificado de Registro de la Unión Europea, or you have a February resolution and you want to change it. So you select this option with Brexit. However, if you do not see this option, do not panic because you could always try and book an appointment under this option, which is toma de huellas. And when you go to your appointment, you can raised to the officers that they weren't an option just for Brexit. So that's why you decided to select this option, which you think is the closest one to the fingerprints, because toma de huellas means fingerprints, which is the same thing that you will be doing with the Brexit procedure. You still have to take the correct forms. So when you're doing these fingerprints options, you have to take the EX23 form and you have to take your TASA payment, which, just as a reminder, is still 12 euros and it's the same option, which is the Certificado de Registro o Tarjeta de Identidad de Extranjero. Okay. Now, at the really beginning, I was mentioning that some of you might have started noticing that even if I'm giving you options of how to book an appointment, you are finding it really hard to find an appointment to submit all your evidence, and that is really worrying you. So, in order to have a quicker process, what you could do is two options. Either you can use a digital certificate yourself if you do have access to one. On our website at Aging Spain, we have a guide. It's all in English and explains detailed step by step all what you need to follow in order to obtain one of these digital certificates. However, Mark, as Mark can also point out, other third parties can also apply on your behalf, which means what happens if I don't have a digital certificate and I cannot get one? Because we must not forget, in order to get a digital certificate, I need to have an NIE number, which is the tax identification number. And if I have been here since December or October or even earlier than that, and I haven't got an NIE number by then, it might be difficult for me to obtain one. So, what I can do in this case? Well, you can always, if you know someone, maybe a family members of yours, or maybe a work colleague, or maybe someone that is close to you and that you trust, not necessarily needs to be a professional, that actually has a digital certificate, that person can upload your application on, like, could upload your application on your behalf. But in order to do that, it is very, very, very important that they get this document signed by you, and that you specify who are you deciding to act on your behalf. So on the first part of this document, which it can be easily downloaded online, you need to write your full details, including, which is very important, your address, which we'll speak about that in a minute, because I know that in the north of Spain, correos might not work as good as in some other areas. And then it's important that you write here the contact details of your representative. And then you need to sign this form. And a part of presenting this form, your representative also needs to show proof of their own ID. So if they're British national and they have a TIE, they need to show the TIE. If they have green certificate, a certificado de registro, they need to show that and the passport. Or if they're Spanish national, the DNI. Okay, so that's important. That it's not only your evidence of your ID, but your representative also needs to show the ID. Okay. Um, Now I'm going to, oops, sorry for that. I'm going to pass over to Mark, because we are aware that, especially in the north, there are some topics that you might be interested about, and Mark is going to speak a bit about them, and then he will pass back to me so I can explain a bit about it as well.
Thank you, Deepika, for your very comprehensive explanation. I think it will be super useful for many viewers and also people that will join us maybe later. Um, just to say very briefly that to anyone watching the video right now, you can drop a comment with your questions. We are here also to answer any question that you may have, so do not be shy, and send your question through the comment box below the video. And at the end of this session, we hopefully can answer all of them and leave no one watching this event with any doubts. Okay. One of the issues that currently some inquirers have brought up when calling to Agent Spain when sending an inquiry is what happens when I'm moving stuff from the UK to Spain in 2021, now that the UK is outside the EU and there are new agreements in place. Well, there are definitely some changes that concern a wide range of objects, of luggage that you may have carried in the past, and that you should be aware. We are still getting into that to bring a comprehensive guide on how each uh, material, each medicine can be affected by customs control. But what we recommend right now is before carrying anything important from the UK to Spain, to consult first of all with your flying company if it is legal, if you won't have any problems regarding tax, especially because even though something might be legal to carry from the UK to Spain, because now the UK is outside the EU, though this product might be object of taxation, especially if it's something connected with medicine, with proteins, with food supplements that we know that some of our anchors actually used to carry very often. So probably this is better to talk with a courier company that has a good grasp with the customs control and how everything has been changed. It has been changing constantly since past December, so they can take care of that. And for everything else, shortly we will come with a new guide that we will, of course, announce in our Facebook page. And if you subscribe to our newsletter, you will be able to also follow the most recent updates by Agent Spain. Another option that you have, if any doubts regarding customs controls, is to call the 060 number, which is the general number of the Spanish administration, and ask for an English speaker to ask any questions that you may have right away, some things that maybe cannot wait our guide, right? Okay,
On
Deepika, want to add something?
So yeah, so on that note, maybe especially in the area of Santander where Brittany ferries are, some of you are very used to use that type of kind of shipping company to come over from the UK. Just a reminder that at the moment, we have got confirmation from Brittany ferries that only passengers from the UK who have some sort of document showing that they're residents can enter Spain with proof, and they also need to have a PRC test done 48 hours before landing. So bear in mind that the journey all the way from the UK to Spain takes 24 hours. So bear in mind always, make sure that you have your test according to the timings. The Brittany Ferries has also confirmed that any person who is planning to do a move, for example, from the UK to Spain, and might decide to travel with lorries or with furniture, that customs are currently taking certain inspections. So that's why we do recommend what Mark did mention earlier, that you should either speak with your shipping company to make sure that they have a grasp knowledge of what forms do you need to fill in order to not be then getting any surprises when you do arrive, and to make sure that you're completing the paperwork needed for customs. So that's important to mention here.
Okay. And now jumping to the next topic regarding particularities in the north of Spain for the residency process. Deepika, what can you tell us? There are some things that are different than the rest of Spain regarding resolutions, how to apply, which documents are accepted. What can you tell us about this?
So I will say that the main issues in the north, as I was saying earlier, is that we have received some feedback from people calling us from the north, informing us that they never have received the letter, for example, the resolution, the February resolution. And we have been in touch with the Extranjería office of Lugo, and we were told that if you have a February resolution and you haven't received it, you shouldn't worry, and you should just jump to do just step 2 with the police station, because they have the data recorded. So for those of you that haven't received a resolution, I would recommend to either approach the Extranjería office and mention that you are aware that you have February resolution because you have tracked your application maybe online. We can also share with all of you how to track your application. The 3 ways of doing so. One is by checking online, and the other one is by calling a 902 number, and the third option is by sending an SMS with your NIE number or expediente number if you do know it. So it's important that if you have issues with Correos, bear that in mind. I would also like to give a big reminder that the way Correos work is that the letters that come, if you have applied on yourself, you will be the one receiving the notifications. Now, if you went in person, these notifications are going to come to you via post. They're going to come to your house, but it's not a letter that is just dropped as a package, even if you're not at home. This type of letters require signature because they require to track down when did actually you were notified by the Spanish authorities. Because from the date you sign the receipt of a letter, 10 days count normally for you to take any action, if any actions are needed. So it's important to bear in mind if you are organizing some traveling or you think you might not be at home and you're expecting one of these letters to either speak with someone else who might be at home to make them aware that you are waiting for this letter to come over, or to alternatively yeah, make sure that you do receive at least the yellow slip, because if you're not at home, Correos will try only one more time, and then lastly they will just leave a yellow slip in your letterbox if you do have a letterbox, and they will have a deadline for you to go to Correos to collect your letter. So please bear this in mind because it's very important. And I am aware that some people do live in very remote areas and getting correos is a challenge in itself. So I do recommend to those people that actually the digital certificate might be the best option because you do receive notifications online for that reason. For those of you who, for example, have appointed a third party, a gestor or a professional such as a lawyer or any other professional, please make sure to speak to them to discuss who is the person going to be notified of anything that is missing, because when you do your application you are asked which address will the notification should go to, so bear that in mind.
Thank you, Deepika. So we've gone through the residency process, through some particularities about the resolutions. What if you don't have one? You can still go in Lugo. Um, Something I don't know if you mentioned it, Deepika. Something very important is to make sure that every single dot in the I is properly written down. Either in your EX20 form, in your uh, applications, and also in the receipts of presentation and the resolution, because that's what eventually will get written down in your card. So if you see any mistake before you receive your card, it's very important to notify that to the appropriate authorities. Okay.
Yeah, that's a very, very good
Mm-hmm.
point, Mark, because we have here, and this is very important. Some of you are very happy when you do your fingerprints and you just want to get out of there because it's all done. But we have noticed that some people have got the gender wrong on the TIEs. And this is because when they receive the resguardo, which you get as soon as you do your fingerprints, they haven't realized that it has written, for example, femenino instead of masculino or vice versa. The problem is from the moment you leave the office, all that information goes to a database and that gets sent to Madrid. And even if your card is going to take 60 days or 45 days to be printed, the problem is until that card does not arrive, you cannot amend any mistakes. So it means if you have put your address incorrectly, or your gender, or your name, or anything that really is binding for you and you worried, what was going to happen is that until that card doesn't come back, that card cannot be destroyed and a new card cannot be issued, which means instead of just taking 5 more minutes by reading it correctly, you now have to take 4 months almost to get the proper card. Now, for those of you who actually might be in the process already and maybe you have changed your address, if you have changed your address before getting your TIE done, what you could do is when your fingerprints appointments come over, you take your new padron to make sure that your TIE card, even though your resolution had an address, your TIE card has the new address of your padron. For those of you who have already issued your TIE card and you have changed your address, what I do recommend is that what you could do is you can go to the police office and mention these details and show them your new padron so they can change it at least on the database, even though it might not be changing the card. Because if you want to change in the card, it does mean paying the 12 euros again and having to wait another X amount of days to get it down. And this is because the machine where the TIs are printed is all centralized in Madrid. So do take that into account.
Thank you, Deepika. I think that now we can jump to our next section in the event, which is the Q&A. I see that some people is already commenting. So we will start with Amaya Arias Garcia. And the question is, hi, thanks for your help. I have been living in the UK for many years and I am moving back to Spain in July. I have only a UK driving license. Do you know what is happening with UK driving licenses? Okay, Amaya, I'm assuming you are a UK national or do you have an EU nationality? Because the process can vary depending on your passport. But either way, if you're a UK national and had a UK driving license back in 2020, you had the chance to request for the exchange with the condition that you were a resident by the time you were requesting that exchange. So since then, that door is for now closed, and sadly, all UK nationals that want to exchange their driving license in 2021 for a Spanish one will have to do the process and also take a driving test. We want to let you know that we're in close contact with the FCDO and there is being a big negotiation going on with the Spanish authorities to try to change that. But so far we have no news in this regard, and for now we're informing that yes, you need to take a test in order to exchange your UK license for a Spanish one. Also, let you know that you can still use your UK driving license for 6 months since your arrival to Spain, and if you were living in Spain before the end of 2020, that date starts from the 1st of January, so you would have till the 30th of June. Okay. Okay, Amaya, you have both both passports. In this case, it should be easier. I would advise to visit the Digiti website and then check for the canje. Okay, and there you will be able to select the option canje, then put the country in your passport, and hopefully the process without so much complication as if you were just a UK national. So in this sense, you have a little advantage there. We have another question from Richard Sweeting, and the question is, hello. I have had the green residency document for a couple of years, and I am understanding that there is no obligation to change it for a year. This being the case, I am planning on making the change later, when coronavirus is behind us. Does that make sense? Turning to health coverage, for years I have had a private coverage due to working internationally. Now retired, I have recently made an application to the Xunta de Galicia to be covered by Sergas under the Convenio Especial. I assume that with that being carried out, I can then cancel my private policy, correct? Thanks very much, Richard. You want to answer that one, Deepika?
So I want to answer the healthcare part. So a bit of clarification. When you mean convenio especial, do you mean the convenio especial that you have to pay an amount on it, or do you mean that because you have also working? I mean, if you said turning for healthcare coverage for years, I had private coverage. Now retire. I'm assuming you are retired in the UK, or you are also retired in Spain, because it does depend. If you have had social contributions in Spain and you are classified as a pensioner in Spain, then you have entitlement to the access to the healthcare system in Spain as a pensioner. If you are a pensioner in the UK, you could request to the UK a document called S1, which you can then present at the Galicia authorities at Sergas for them to give you access to the healthcare system, because the convenio especial that we are very familiar with is the one that after 1 year of padron, depending on your age, you pay a certain amount of money to the system and you get access to the system. But and in that, if that was the case, regarding in any of these three scenarios, from the moment you have access to the public state healthcare, you do not need to also have private insurance. That's a complement that you can decide to continue having or not, but you won't be on obligation. As you said earlier, you already have your green certificate. Um, and that you want to exchange it for the TIE when coronavirus is behind us, there is, as you have pointed out, there is no obligation on changing it, but you will notice that some administrations are becoming a bit more pickier about show me your TIE. So be prepared to challenge that and to keep reassuring that reassuring that it's still valid. I do recommend as well that you check if you already have the green card for less than 5 years. When you do get your TIE, when you have to fill your form, make sure that you date with that you already have had a green residency, so they take into account the time that you already have had that for when you get your TIE.
Yes, regarding the T exchange, Richard, it is true that for now, for the time being, the green card is equal to the new UK specific tier, and that we do not foresee any sort of obligation. So far, it hasn't been announced, but it is true that this could change at any moment. On top of that, there is another situation, right? You have first what the withdrawal agreement says, what the law says, and then what actually happens on the ground in the practical sense, right? When you go to a town hall to register for something, when you ask or try to access to a service, and we've experimented and received some inquiries of people having certain problems and misunderstanding with local authorities that are already rejecting the green certificates. That practice is bad practice. Those green certificates shouldn't be rejected, but it is also true that having at the new tier will probably save you some trouble that isn't justified, and you would not be doing anything wrong. But if you want to avoid any of this misunderstanding that might happen at a local level, I would advise to start the process now. Um, to do the exchange, you just have to visit once the police station. And yeah, if you have the green residency card, I mean, it's nothing urgent. From Agent Spain, we always advise to do the change because this way you uh, get, instead of that flimsy green paper card, a durable biometric document that can also work as an ID. So
Okay.
ultimately, it's up to you, but we always advise to do the change sooner than later. Imagine that all of a sudden they make it mandatory and then everyone starts booking appointments, right? So, want to avoid that.
And one note, I just realized that Richard did mention that he expects to maybe pay. I will recommend Richard to maybe contact us at Agent Spain so we could perhaps speak more in detail about his case, and he could contact the UK to see if he's entitled to an S1 or not, because he might be or he might not, and depending of that, he could decide what public healthcare is best for him.
Okay, going on to the next question, we'll try to read every single one and answer. Is Lynn, I hope I pronounce it properly, Schulstadt, Greasy. And the question is, my first residency was approved in December 2016. I renew it at 1 year, 2 years, and 2 years. This December, I will renew it for 5 years. I recently read that you cannot be out of Spain for more than 12 months when you apply for the 5 year residency. Is this true? Well, Lynn, that information maybe it's a bit outdated at this time, and keeping in mind that you are clearly under the scope of the withdrawal agreement, you will have to apply for the new permanent UK specific tier. That tier will allow you to be, first of all, absent from Spain up to 5 years. So because it will be a permanent card, and also you will only have to renew it every 10 years. So it's a big change. On top of that, you will have access to the Spanish healthcare system without any conditions, just because of your condition of permanent residence. And yeah, I hope I asked your question.
And bear
Um,
in mind that this is for UK nationals, because the renewal process is a different one for third country nationals that they tend to have cards that they need to renew in that sort of time frame that Lynn has described, 1, 2, and 2. But normally UK nationals, when they used to get the green certificate, they were only told that they need to get back after 5 years to get the permanent status, and some of you did and some of you didn't. But in theory, regardless if you have permanent or not, the important thing is that you are protected. You should jump into the TIE without problems. But bear in mind that those that have permanent green certificates will get a permanent TA.
Okay, so Lynn, you're an American. Okay, in this case, the situation changes a bit. So the withdrawal agreement wouldn't apply to you. In this case, yep, you don't have to apply for the UK specific tier. You just have to apply for the permanent residency. Okay, so I believe is the exact same form that you used to before, the EX17. You will just have to pay attention and tick the not the temporary residency this time, but the option that lets you apply for the permanent residency. Okay. Jumping to the next question, Alex Poole. The question is, hi, thanks for your help. I am a UK national and military veteran, married to a Spanish lady. Both of us are currently working in the UK and plan to retire to Asturias within the next 2 years. Is there any documentation we can start now prior to moving to Spain? We do have our UK marriage certificate recognized in Spain. Wanna jump in, Deepika, or should I?
I leave it to you because it's all about the visas
Okay.
option.
So, yes, Alex, in this case, you being married to a Spanish national is a big advantage because, of course, if you haven't still moved into Spain, you are not under the withdrawal agreement because it only covers the residency rights of the people that was already living in Spain. However, you can still apply for the EU family card, EU family member card, because of your wife being Spanish. For that, you will need to prove your relationship. Having a marriage certificate recognized in Spain is the key document, to be honest. And I don't think you will have any problems at all. Keep in mind that if you plan to apply for the EU family card, you won't need any sort of visa either, because the first 90 days that you live in Spain, you can enter without any kind of visa requirements, and during those 3 months, you can then start the residency process.
And
Keep in mind that you can either apply by appointment, and depending on the region where you live, you might have to apply with a digital certificate. Now, this is a type of digital ID, sort of. And for the EU family card, the process is a bit different, we could say, because you can only apply with a digital certificate that has a foreign identity number, so not a Spanish national identity number attached to it. What we say NIE as well. In this case, if it's the case that you need to apply with a digital certificate, probably you will have to seek help of a solicitor, of a gestor that we call in Spain. But yes, if you happen to move during this year, feel free to send us an email or an inquiry form, and we'll try to follow your process and help you with the residency and the EU family card.
And another note of the EU family card, which is interesting for him to know, is that once he has the EU family card, he will have certain rights as free movement in Europe, different to other people, because he will be having the EU family card. So I think that's important to note as well.
Okay. Next question, Julian Baker. The question is, hello both, I am a UK national moving to Spain with my wife who is Spanish. I will be working for a UK IT company remotely from Spain. I know there is a dual tax agreement, but I wasn't sure how to set that up. Okay, Julian, regarding residency, which it doesn't look like your question, it would be in the same note as Alex. And about tax advice, if you want, you can send us an inquiry. We do provide some general information regarding tax, but we are not a team of experts in this field. And I would suggest to contact a local lawyer. We can refer you to a list of English-speaking lawyers that work in Spain in all areas, so you may consult them. Okay? Great. It seems that there are no more questions. So in this case, well, thank you everyone for coming today, for listening to our information, and for, of course, sending all your comments and messages of support as well within the live stream or through our residency helpline. We appreciate them a lot. And yep, I see one last question, Deepika, so I think before closing in, we can answer it.
And we'll remind our
Gabriel
details.
Hart Crowley, she asks, or he asks, Buenas tardes. We're thinking about moving to Spain for a while. We're retired and would like to know if we're able to apply for medical insurance in Spain. How many years are you able to live in Spain with a visa? We're thinking, we want to learn Spanish well before making a final move. Okay, Gabriel. So the visa regime in Spain works in the following way. You obtain a visa from the UK, and then that visa serves as your entry ticket to Spain. And once you've entered in Spain, you have a time period where you can request the residency card. Okay, so here visa doesn't and I believe in Europe in general, visa works a bit differently than in other third countries. It looks that for your case, you would be looking at the non-lucrative visa, and we have information about it. So if you send us a Facebook message asking for it, or send us an inquiry or an email to our email address, you can ask that question and all the other questions that you may have, because I'm sure that this is just the tip of the iceberg, I'm sure, Gabriel. So, and we can then comprehensively send you a message back with everything that you may need. Okay. If you want to know about the student visa, we can also provide information on it. We have everything. So yeah, just it's so much information that telling this right now would only saturate you. So yeah, you can get back to us via inquiry. With this, we will close the event. Thank you everyone for coming, and see you next time. We will announce the future events shortly through our Facebook page and newsletter. Have a nice afternoon, and see you next time.
Take care. Bye bye.